landscape. Anki, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jesse Rogers, for this very, very important introduction to this very anticipated conversation this evening. You can see outside, I'm just about enjoying the breeze and the beautiful residents of Kalonzo Musyoka right on location. And I know that Kenyans have been sending their questions already on our social media. It's overwhelming. A number of questions coming in for Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Senior Counsel. I'm giving you his profile shortly. He's seated right here with me and is equally eager to speak to the Kenyans tonight on matters of national importance. If you looked at our poster tonight, the Kenya's political landscape through Kalonzo's eyes. You'd ask, why Kalonzo? He has served as the 10th Vice President of the Republic of Kenya. In fact, he was first elected to the parliament at the age of about 31 in the year 1983. Prior to that, he had already, declared his ambition and vied in 1983. That is very, very interesting. But he went on to serve in the public office uninterrupted for about 28 years straight, and he's still here today, even as we also acknowledge that he's a father and a family man. He is also the party leader of Wiper Democratic Movement Kenya, which will be celebrating 20 years this month. He'll tell us more about that. He has served in different capacities as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kenya twice. We're talking about 2003 to 2005, and he's also served between 1993 to 1998. He served as a Minister of Education, Minister of Information, among others, but very key as we bring in also the aspect of the majority and minority in the National Assembly. Kalonzo Musyoka has served as a Deputy Speaker of National Assembly of Kenya from 1988 to 1992. Now a member of National Assembly and so many other things. I can go on and on and on and not even get to the point where he served as the Special Envoy to Sudan. It would be endless.
You forgot I was Minister for the Environment.
When
Professor Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Peace Award, and I had the privilege of escorting her to Oslo. And then I made a remark that I was the only minister I could think of in the world whose deputy was more famous than him, than himself. And you tried to itemize, to list the ministries. You forgot I was also Ministry for Home Affairs. Yeah?
It is.
So nobody gets his list correct, but never mind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For, welcoming us to your residence.
Welcome.
And for enjoying the cold with us today.
Yeah,
there's a fire there.
A fire.
All right, let's start with, your book, Against All Odds. And I want to start with that because most recently you're now an author. And because we want to see things through your eyes. First, let me just hold it. Against All Odds, this particular book, it doesn't feel very light. There's a lot in it. I will start with why Against All Odds. And just take us back to an afternoon, one Friday in April. I believe that's where it began. And I also understand you have a special gazebo that could bring a bit of nostalgia. What has your journey been like, Kalonzo?
Well, simple village boy, born in Sekuru, in Kitui County. That is home. I guess that is the equivalent of Wamunyoro.
Okay. The village,
or Sugoi or some place. Or indeed the Shaweri, these places. But I come from a village which was, at the time I was born, a conflict zone. That explains why I have a passion for resolving conflicts. We then had the Shifter War. I used to hide in the bush. At least then our late mother would carry me and escape into the bush. And so Against All Odds has a lot to do, or something to do, with a very difficult background. And one gets up to become what you yourself said, the vice president. And who would have imagined that such a one would even be garnering for the post of a leadership, the top leadership of the country. once in 2007, and most probably, not most probably, it is obvious to all and sundry that we will be in the ballot in 2027 or even earlier.
Or even earlier.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I can see you're enjoying a cup of tea there. It's very important then to talk about the cup of tea that was shared today, because we're talking about 2027, and just want to hear on a light note, because having seen you with, you know, your friends, you actually wrote that on your X platform. You're just enjoying a cup of tea.
It was.
With Eugene
But I think I had cappuccino.
Oh, yeah?
And and Eugene had cappuccino.
Yes.
But Ricky G, I noticed, he said, not Milo. What is it?
Is it hot chocolate?
Hot chocolate, white, he said. Okay.
Yes.
It was simple, very simple. Since I think we last met when Eugene Wamalwa and his team were launching the headquarters for Democratic Action Kenya.
Yes.
That's the first time we had, a get-together, and we made some statements there.
Yes.
And it's always good to catch up. It's very, very important to catch up. So we were catching up with each other.
So you were just catching up.
Yeah, I tell you, I had a lot of very interesting things as we had that coffee. And I think they should remain within that space. But it was very, very interesting. I must say, I don't know much about Rigiji. But, and because the first time I saw him, he was talking like William Ruto.
Okay.
That kind of thing. They kind of influence each other's style of talk and conversation. And I noticed he still has a little bit of, he says Mr. President, and some of us are not used to that. We call him William Ruto. But that he was apparently enjoying all the visits to Amunyoro.
Yes.
He shared that with us. And because when some militias were unleashed against him and Pastor Dorcas, they couldn't even do church or something. They decided to retreat to their place.
Okay.
Very comfortable. But the most interesting joke I had was when Rigiji and his wife were discussing, how would we react? Because knowing William Ruto, they know him. He could take an helicopter and land in Wamunyoro.
All right.
How would they react?
How would they react?
That's right. Now, I'm not going to disclose what we shared. But that tells you that, you know, we're in one country.
All right.
We are one people at the end of the day. And, but anybody getting a visit from William Ruto at this time is likely to attract a lot of conversation.
All right.
To put it diplomatically.
Diplomatically.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I want to just go into, before we will look at the 2027 conversation, but prior to that, there is the diplomatic conversation that is going on. Just over the weekend, if I put it that way, the AUC elections took center stage, not just in this country, but continentally, in fact, globally, because then we followed closely what happened. Raila Odinga, your ally, if I put it that way, politically, you have walked this journey with him until most recently when he was fronted for this position, and you wished him well.
Yeah.
You even said you would take...
Very sincerely.
Very sincerely.
Absolutely. And I even did a few things.
Yes.
To push his candidature. Yeah, and I'm sure he's aware.
But he
talking to 2 or 3 of my good African heads of state. Yeah. And I started with President Akaide in Kinshasa during the swearing in of President Felix, second term of DRC. It was then that Qaeda approached me, and ahead of us was President Kikwete, another friend of mine, and Mzee Olusegun Obasanjo.
Nigeria.
Yes, and so Qaeda said, this thing Obasanjo is telling me,
yes.
Can you confirm or deny that your friend Raila is going to run for this seat?
Yes.
I hadn't discussed it with Raila at that point, but I decided, wow, let me hazard a guess. And after that, when we came back, I called him. I said, I've been asked difficult questions you never shared with me. So I said, it is true. So the candidature then was established.
But there we had the votes, and
Yeah.
so far he has lost in his back home, which he declared, whichever way it goes, he has come back home. He said he has a lot to do.
Home is
but
home.
You gave some remarks on Sunday.
Yes.
Precisely on who blundered where. And you called out President William Ruto in certain areas. You're a diplomat.
Yes.
So you would know what would have been done better.
Yes. I tell you, as a Kenyan, I was hurting.
Okay.
And I still would wish to repeat, because that was a slap on the face. It goes to show the extent to which our country has lost face and recognition. I'll elaborate. We are known in the region as a country that is beholden to working towards peace and regional stability, because we live in a region which has been quite tough. Look at the entire Horn of Africa region, which includes Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia.
Yes.
Now, and of course the IGAD region. Our involvement in Somalia over the years,
Right.
since the overthrow of Siad Barre in 1991. My own involvement as Minister for Foreign Affairs that time, including declaring myself a member of one of the Somali clans, Digli Merifli, because of the Hiers, the Wiers, and the Darots. And even our involvement in Burundi that time. One time, President Kikwete and I, as foreign ministers, and Mwalimu Nyerere, were working on stability of Burundi, and then South Africans came into the scene. We tried to work. Of course, in 1994,
Yes.
after the genocide, literally in Rwanda, I was then foreign minister, when the whole world seemed to have left that country to perish, including the United Nations that time. Terrible mistakes were made. And then the country, even when people like Museveni were fighting to claim leadership of Uganda, Kenya was seen to be home to them. Museveni, I think, knows a lot of corners in this country. Now, imagine all of a sudden, somebody like BCJ is abducted. We are now known as a country of abductions, all right? That is terrible, and these are the terrible negative effect on the candidature of Raila Amolo Odinga.
All right.
Not to mention, of course, the fact that nearly a year ago, the Gen Z revolution, all right, which continues, by the way.
You actually called it a revolution.
It's a revolution.
All right.
And in my view, this is continuing, because the issues that were raised a year ago have never been addressed. Instead of getting them addressed on transparency, good governance, stopping corruption, and all of that, instead of working on those issues, this administration, the William Ruto administration, resorted to abducting the young people, right? We put it rightly or wrongly, I think. I'm quite clear in my mind. Anybody who is on Safaricom, the young people on Safaricom, right, got that particular network provider got compromised by the state, and then young people were followed and put into the boots of Subarus, the famous Subarus, and even as we speak, that is a challenge. And nothing by way of addressing their concerns was ever discussed. Remember, sometimes they're saying maybe they will compensate the families, maybe they will try and do something. Nothing doing. Therefore, there is anger in the air. And even as the country moves towards June 25th, I call it J25.
All right.
June 25th, to mark the first anniversary of the Gen Z revolution, I think there'll be fireworks. Therefore, this revolution continues.
Now, besides the revolution, because I think we lost track there a bit, we were in the diplomatic, ties and what's happening. I'm holding just a copy of the Standard today, the Bold newspaper. And what
betrayed by Kenya.
This is
the
what
country
it
of
is.
abductions.
And
by the way,
yes,
against some of the international conventions. Remember, even before this, some Turks were apprehended. And the result of some of these things, by the way, had even international repercussions.
All right.
But let me just complete my thought.
Yes.
About what I was telling you about what may have affected Raila Odinga's candidature.
Right.
This matter of abductions, the Gen Z revolution, and even now, tied to the Bisinji story, you have a situation which is even now ongoing, and it's very disturbing, when William Ruto allowed a group calling itself the River Congo Alliance at the Serena Hotel, one of our premier hotels, right? Complete with wonderful government reception, because nobody will come from the airport and go and get booked at the Serena Hotel without intelligence networks and all knowing. So this, although William Ruto said, oh, we are a democratic country,
well,
we cannot stop anybody from making statements, but I want to suggest, and it is very clear, that this was well planned with concurrence and facilitation of Kenya Kwanza administration. The result of that was that Kinshasa withdrew the ambassador to Kenya. All right? And our own ambassador, I think, was also asked to leave. And that hostility continued. I happen to know that President Felix Tshisekedi is a friend of Raila. And it got to a stage where Felix told Raila, I have no problem, you have my vote, but you're president.
Okay.
But you're president. So there are issues that are particular to William Ruto.
All right.
And that the effect of it is to lose our status as a country, as a bastion of peace and harmony, in order to facilitate conflict resolution. We worked, of course, for South Sudan.
And I was coming there.
South Sudan,
Yes.
we worked even for the Sudan itself.
All right.
I remember before we signed the comprehensive peace agreement in Nairobi in 2005, in order to get President al-Bashir to agree to the comprehensive peace agreement, popularly known as a CPA, I had to use all manner of diplomatic approaches. Some of it not the normal diplomatic approaches. I mean, you know, where you call ambassadors and high commissioners and drink tea and drink coffee and visit with them. We had to use all manner of approaches, including sending friends to talk to President Bouteflika, then President of Algeria, who agreed to talk to President al-Bashir in order to agree to allow the status of Khartoum. Khartoum now is a war zone.
As we speak.
Allow Khartoum,
yes,
right, to be Sharia-free during the duration which we called the precursor to the referendum under the CPA.
All right.
Okay? So, and this worked, including, by the way, inviting Ali Osman Taha, the then vice president, under Bashir, to come to attend ostensibly the funeral of our late brother, Kijana Wamalwa, who died. And I was not a vice president, but I invited him in writing to come. The plan was, if our brother, Dr. John Garang, failed to show up in Nairobi, all right, then in order to cover up President Bashir's concerns, his vice president was going to represent him in the state funeral of Vice President Kijana Wamalwa. So you use those tactics.
Yes.
But this current administration has absolutely no knowledge of some of these things. But worse, the cardinal principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries, including neighboring states. They seem to have forgotten and ignored that completely. Now, as we speak, Dagalo, Hemeti is in Nairobi, and they are here to sign an agreement to establish a parallel government to the one led by General Buran. What does that mean? Direct interference in the affairs of a neighboring country. But I stand to be guided.
Okay.
If President William Ruto comes and says, oh, I consulted with the member countries of IGAD, remember, we belong to a very important regional bloc. And again, I worked so hard, I remember in Djibouti, amending the charter of IGAD from double G to IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development. And one of the main thrusts is working for peace in the region. Now, if Ruto comes up and says, oh, I consulted with the regional heads of state for IGAD, and they allowed me to host a METI in Nairobi, maybe I can give him the benefit of the doubt. But if there was no consultation, then this is direct interference. And in fact, it puts Kenya again on the firing line. Because you never know what the other side of Sudan would want to do. So I've given you 2 cases of interference in internal affairs.
And how actually...
That DRC, and by the way, we worked very hard to get DRC to become a member of East African Community. I want to make here a statement. As we speak, Kenya Kwanza administration has ruined the status of integration within the East African Community, number 1, and they have also now ruined the status of IGAD. Therefore, what are they doing? They're making Kenya a pariah state. That's what it is. Okay, so I wanted to make that statement.
And it's very important.
I hope you don't feel disturbed.
I do not feel disturbed at all. What we're trying here is to tap into your expertise as a diplomat, having served, and I just want to share this with the viewer, as an envoy to Sudan, all right, under President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. You were also recognized, if I am correct, August 18th, about 2016, and you were awarded by an NGO, but it was still an award, the African Dignity Man of the Year in a glamorous ceremony in New York. This is what they actually attributed it to. Kalonzo Musyoka was recognized in that nomination for the efforts to bring peace to South Sudan during his tenure as Foreign Affairs Minister. Just one question before we take a breather. There's a Kenya you envision for yourself, that young man in Mwingi, all right, who vied in the 1980s, who is still here, anticipating to make Kenya a better place in 2027. But this is what I want to hear before we take a short breather. There has to be a turnaround. There has to be a lesson learned from what happened at the AUC and what you have spoken to about right now. Regardless of what you said, we need to know if President Ruto consulted it as far as the parallel government signage is concerned. What would be your take home, or what would you say in as far as getting things right from the lessons learned?
Yeah, first of all, I maintain that Raila did not lose. It was William Ruto who lost. And Kenya also lost. Like a slap on the face. All right? So that, let's be very clear, and I've given you the reasons. The block of 16 member countries of SADC, when there was a lot of interference within the affairs of the DRC, decided, and by the way, when Goma fell several days ago, and we are talking about 5,000 plus dead in Goma, and about 200 dead in Bukavu just about 2-3 days ago.
The city, yes.
With the UN soldiers, mainly some of them, by the way, from member countries of SADC. South African soldiers were killed in Goma. Tanzanian soldiers too were killed, all right? What does that tell you? That bloc then got together and said we must punish Kenya. Not Raila Odinga.
Kenya.
Kenya.
All right.
All right? So, we hope Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga will be thinking hard about what to do. About what happened in Addis Ababa. But I listened to, on a lighter note, some supporters of Raila in Kisumu were saying, hey, this Addis Ababa, we can't get there to do demonstrations, right? And by the way, how can Baba go to lose in a city which is named after him, Addis Ababa?
Oh, interesting. let me take a short break on that note. Remember, we're coming back to go deeper into the political alignments. I mean, how can we sit with Kalonzo Musyoka and not ask him what it would mean for Baba's return into politics? Let's take a short break.
It's not possible for Raila to, when you say return to politics.
Welcome back, and thank you for choosing to stay with us. I want to appreciate your overwhelming feedback on our social media platforms. I'll be asking Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to respond to majority of that. And thank you once again for allowing us into your home and for speaking to the Kenyans tonight. I just want to get into the politics. All right.
Oh, I thought you were in politics.
Oh, that wasn't politics yet. It was politics at another level, continental level.
Lovely.
And we're also appreciating your diplomacy. And now we're going deeper into local politics, if we may.
Okay.
Azimio, and you're all on record just recently saying, well, Azimio cannot be rebranded, but you also did not say that you, as the Wiper Party, has completely left Azimio. But a number of people would want to seek and indulge you in the future of either, working with Raila Odinga or not, or what are the options you'd give Baba at this point in time? Because anyway, he's back home. Do you have meetings with the council? There's, the chairperson, Uhuru Kenyatta, the leadership of Azimio. What is the position of Azimio, and what would be your remarks for Baba at this particular point?
I can tell you point blank, Azimio has been limping, all right?
Okay.
Limping. Since the announcement of Raila's candidature for the AUC chair. The summit of the council has not met.
All right.
Has not met for the duration. That is why people like my sister Mother Karua decided to give notice, which notice has since taken effect. So NAC Kenya left Azimio. And considering she was the running mate to Raila Odinga, what does that do to Azimio? That's why I say it's limping.
All right.
Then Wiper Democratic Movement, we've not announced that we're leaving Azimio, but clearly we are in agreement that we have to have a hard look at Azimio. The Secretary General of Azimio is Junet Mohammed. I don't know when he last came to headquarters. Nobody knows where the headquarters of Azimio is. Okay? So, in fact, it is one political party in coalition which is not compliant when it comes to the provisions of Political Parties Act.
All right.
All right? So, post AUC for Raila Odinga,
yes,
I see options. Option number one is to come back and say, wait, I'd even handed over to Peter Anyang' Nyong'o to be the interim party leader of ODM.
Yes.
And therefore, I'm assuming the leadership of that party, and then say, hey, let's look for what remains of Azimio, and still put together a new form of Azimio, or a new form. I would probably want to go for a different name.
All right.
And we are working on that. Option number one. Option number two is for Raila Odinga to come and join William Ruto. And if he does that, in my view, that would be ill-advised, because how do you join a person who, as late as the visit to Isiolo, and Kenyans, they're shouting, Ruto must go. How does Raila now come? But we also recognize William Ruto is looking at Raila Odinga as the lifeline. It's the presidency. If Raila Odinga chooses to say, William, thank you, you supported my candidature, and indeed, one has to have support of a candidate, no William Ruto. By the way, we have a problem with the way the micromanagement of Raila's candidature by William Ruto, wanting to reap maximum personal benefit looking at 2027. Raila Odinga will have to decide whether he wants to go that route, and therefore be seen to have sacrificed the aspirations of young Kenyans. Would he want to do that? I think the Raila I know may not want to go that route. But if he goes that route,
yes,
they need to be very clear to the rest of us. The country will still have a very strong opposition. And I want to tell you,
yes,
Anki, the people used to think, oh, the opposition is weak. When we got together, those of us who are still left behind, we dealt with this Andani state capture, or did we not? Including going to court until William Ruto has to cancel that deal, the state capture of very critical infrastructure, like our international airport. We stopped him. That was the work of opposition. Of course, we give credit to our friends who started this whole thing, Menya out there, and we also... The whistleblower, and of course, you remember, we were actually clients. I mean, our client was Tony Gachoka. Tony also came out strongly.
All right.
We took this matter up. We went to court. Now, as senior counsel, you know, when you go to court as senior counsel, you give them priority, by the way,
all right,
which is very, very important. This happens within the professions. So I can tell you, opposition has been strong, even minus Raila Odinga, because they're out there. If he chooses to join William Ruto, we will remain even stronger, because we have chosen to be always on the side of the Kenyan people.
All right.
We cannot have a country that is overtaxed. I do not know of any other country in the world which has the kind of taxation we are going through. Hey, listen, we have come up with a policy of Okoa your payslip. All right? Okoa your payslip. Because only Kenyan is paying to William Ruto's administration nearly 50% what they earn. And by the way, look at the Gen Zs up to 2027.
All right.
We're looking at about 10 million of them. And the 8 million who did not vote in 2022 because they felt relatively comfortable. The middle class. I think these are the ones who wake up at the first crawl of a cock to line up to take William Ruto home.
And in fact, you know, Professor Ajakoya was in studio with Jesse just before we crossed over here. One of the things he said is that, of course, he's looking forward to seeing you on the ballot.
Seeing who?
The Roots Party leader.
Roots. Everybody has, of course, the right, the constitutional right,
all right,
to run. Yeah. But Kenyans know. I think Kenyans are getting to a point where they realize this is not going to be a normal election. As I said, whenever it will be. Okay? For me, it is about saving the country.
Okay.
It's about ukombozi wa nchi. Ukombozi. It's not going to be a normal election which somebody can steal and run away with. By the way, it will not be possible to steal an election again in Kenya. It will
not be possible?
No. Kenyans have said no.
Now here's my...
And I think they will put into action, not just enough to say no, but they will take action.
Kalonzo, you were very integral in the NADCO team.
Yes.
You were a co-chair with, I believe, Ishungwa.
Yes.
And look at this report now, at the heart of anticipation for implementation. The IEBC is shaping up. I do not know if it's in the same tempo you anticipated it to shape up.
No.
But now look at what the Kenya Kwanza... Okay. Look at what the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament or allied politicians are saying. This creation of the Prime Minister position, someone would argue it's the same report. You were very integral.
Are they saying Raila Odinga to become Prime Minister?
Actually,
then they don't know him.
Okay.
They don't know him.
They're saying we should accommodate him.
The same Raila Odinga who, according to him and according to us, and the ticket with Mother Karua,
yes,
according to them, they won the election. And then you now go and become Prime Minister to Ruto. What will you be saying to the country and your own political credentials? Apart from all that, it is unconstitutional. They said it. There's a committee in Parliament which refused to look at the recommendations that were made under NADCO, and they said, this one, including the office of the official leader of the opposition, because William Ruto thought if we pass this, maybe Kalonzo is going to be the official leader and you get some perks from the consolidated fund. How can I give that possibility to him? Stop it. The IEBC thing
Okay.
has happened because I personally said if by March William Ruto will not have gotten these cases withdrawn, I will lead demonstrations in the streets to make sure there is an IEBC. Now, work is under progress.
Yes.
And we established, but the only thing I hope, if Raila Odinga does not join Ruto, yeah, because if he does, he will lose the position of the principal. And we had built within NADCO the principle of consultation between Raila and Ruto.
All right.
So this is one reason Raila cannot join Ruto. Because if he joins him, then I become the other principal.
And
for purposes of NADCO.
And I was coming to ask you that.
Yes.
If that does happen, are you willing to become the principal?
Oh, yeah, anytime. To save the country. Remember, we talk about saving the country. Kukomboa inchi. Yeah. You know where we are, Anki?
Yes.
It is not going to be business as usual. This is not going to be a normal election where we are going. First of all, Kenyans are jobless. Kenyans want to save whatever little they can. It is going to be everybody to make sure that Ruto goes home, and I think he knows this. I expect that he's going to get a proliferation of candidates so that he can confuse the situation.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think that's one of his strategies.
But that's very, very interesting. Saying to save the country, you would opt for that. But let's talk about the majority-minority conversation.
Yes.
You have a legal background, so you do understand the Constitution like the back of your hand.
Yes, indeed.
But you
did not the back of my mind. I'm a constitutional lawyer. Yes.
Yes. And you know, we've actually seen you in the court, and you've mentioned quite a number of things that you have spoken on, including the Adani deals, among other things. But now on the majority-minority, conversation, it was very heated, if you followed, the past weeks, especially after the court's declaration that Azimio is majority.
Yes.
Even as I'm speaking today, just to look at the current, development, we have 4 Kenya Kwanza members of parliament led by Kimani Ichung'wah that have moved to the Court of Appeal seeking to suspend the implementation of the High Court's decision, which found that Azimio la Umoja Coalition as the majority party in parliament. I'm coming to the fact that you've also served as a deputy speaker at some point. As you speak on this matter, because you were very vocal once this declaration or pronouncement was made, you said, go and take your rightful place.
Of course, and they did.
And they did,
I congratulated Junet and his deputy,
Millie.
member Fukadhiani,
Yes.
right? Robert Bui and Millie Odhiambo,
Yes.
the whip. They went and took the position. You know, this is an amazing situation. My friend Weta, and I call him my friend because he is, all right?
Yes.
I once called him after the Gen Z revolution, and I told him, you have a wonderful opportunity of now rising up to the level of the Kenyans, because Kenyans have exercised their right under Article 1 of the Constitution 2010, which says all authority, sovereignty is vested in the Kenyan people.
Yes.
And they can exercise that either directly or through their elected representatives.
Right.
So they decided now to exercise it directly. Now, Weta should have taken cue and would have said, even if there's no constitutional provision, this parliament is dissolved. He didn't do that. He thought I was attacking him. I don't attack anybody, by the way.
Okay.
But I just disagree on issues. Now, he should not have fallen into the trap of trying to interrogate a constitutional court ruling by 3 judges, which declared that he acted unconstitutionally in declaring Kenya Kwanza the majority, and that he also acted, that was an obiter, they call it, in legal terms, that he should not also continue to serve as the chair or the leader of his party. Now, where he got it all wrong was now to subject the ruling of the 3 judges to a debate about his own ruling. Now, Kimani Ichung'wah and company should have moved immediately to court.
All right. Immediately?
Immediately to appeal, what they are doing now. So what is the purpose? Why are they aggrieved? Because after all, their speaker has ruled that they did not, they are still the majority. So what are they appealing against? All right?
All right.
I mean, very simply put, what are they appealing against? The Speaker says, you are the majority. So they should have appealed. That means they have recognized that Wetangula acted unconstitutionally. So that is where we are.
All right.
Because the court's ruling was simple. As the 9th of August, 2022, the coalition that had more members of parliament was Azimio coalition, Azimio la Umoja One coalition. But then William Ruto went on to raid, kind of raid in a very undemocratic manner.
All right.
Raid Jubilee, confused a lot of Jubilee MPs, all right? Raided others, UDM, who are with us, yeah, and confused them with the usual, of course, unpalatable things.
You know, what is interesting is when you're talking about raiding, yet there's a conversation around, you know, shifting political allegiance, including, you know, NAC Kenya that has decided they will dissociate. That's the same way MDG decided they will dissociate. Where do you draw the line about raiding and just exiting as a party? In fact, you're also on record saying there are certain compliances that Azimio doesn't meet.
No, that's a different thing. You're confusing yourself.
Okay, bring me back to
Immediately after the elections, William Ruto decided
right.
he must build an artificial majority.
Artificial?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the artificial thing which now has been found unconstitutional. Simple. All right? That's where we are. Now, ODM hold the key. They either act in the best interest of the country by saying we will agitate for our position. Our party leader, Raila Odinga, should lead the majority side, or his appointees, in this case, Kena Junet Mohammed. I think there's a window of opportunity for Raila Odinga to take charge. And this window can close if he chooses to go the Kenya Kwanza way. If he chooses to say, I'm in opposition, mambo ya AUC, African Union, kusha. Now, I'm back as leader of the opposition for the remainder of the term, which is up to 2027, right? Then I think he will win the confidence of the young Kenyans and his followers.
All right.
Because there are a lot of people, when they said we go to visit Baba, remember? They visited him, his phone crashed, all right? Because he could not understand how in 2023, him and I were nearly killed, demonstrating against the high cost of living, all right? And then the young people come in 2024, they even breached the central business, they were ready to go to State House, and then suddenly, Baba, according to them, has left them. So now, I think, and I called him myself, I told him, I'm very concerned about your legacy. And I hope if he is watching us, he should really think about what I told him. His legacy. He can reclaim that legacy as a person who has fought for democracy in this country, a person who has fought for the rights of the citizens of this country, a person who has put his life on the line for his country. How can he lose all of that by siding with dictators?
But even as we're speaking, there is existence of the broad-based government that has already taken shape. We have had key leaders in the ODM cross over to...
By the way, my advice to them,
cross over,
if they want, I said the whole thing depends on ODM.
All right, okay.
If ODM insist they want to join William Ruto, they are gone. They will have lost it.
Let me come back here to Against All Odds, this book by Kalonzo Musyoka. And I'm looking at the last statement you made in this book. And when I mean last, it is the very last thing that you said. Allow me to quote it. When the sun eventually sets on my political life, I would like to sit back and, like a successful farmer, watch joyfully as Kenyans enjoy the fruits of my labor.
Indeed. I would like my children, my grandchildren, and others who follow to think, oh, there used to be a fellow in our lineage who worked so hard to give us a better future. So when we come out and talk about, we think there's something funny about this mass vaccination of our livestock.
Yes.
And then people say, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. We are not livestock farmers. We grow green grams. Of course, that's all in jest. But the more important thing is, we have come to a stage, a critical stage, personally in my life, when I cannot afford to make a mistake. Kenyans know have been unfairly called all kinds of names. This is a time to prove everybody wrong, and we're going there against all the odds.
Here we go. This Kalonzo Musyoka, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, who for a long time, including now, you go into the court sessions as a senior counsel, you submit, you fight for the rights of the people. You're more of a diplomatic, leader. Very few memes of you in terms of speaking or a certain language that you know that is spoken by politicians on those platforms. Some can be quite, vulgar. I wouldn't say them here. But do you think Kenyans, sometimes it's disheartening to hear what politicians would say, and want the Kenyans to do differently or different things. But do you think Kenyans are ready for a diplomatic a leader, a president?
No, one who not only diplomatic, but one who can roll his sleeves.
All right.
This is a time sometimes to put diplomacy aside and look at the greater good. If people confuse diplomacy for weakness, then let it be put aside, roll our sleeves, and get our country back. That's what we have to do.
Get our country back.
We have to get our country back. Because this country is going down the drain at a rate faster than anybody can imagine. As we speak, I've seen a very interesting analysis of blood money linked to gold mining in Darfur region, in the Sudan. Okay? Do you know, before Bensouda left office as ICC prosecutor, all right? You may have heard of, our viewers may have heard of a team called Janjaweed.
Oh, yes.
All right?
I have.
It is a leadership of Janjaweed, which is in town. MAT, by the way, MAT was also special envoy of Sudan when I was doing the same for special envoy of Sudan to South Sudan. When I was special envoy of Kenya to South Sudan.
South Sudan, yes.
President Bashir was asked by the Americans at that time to release 50 people who were accused of genocide in Darfur. All right? Number 2 in that list was MAT. All right? And number 1 or number 2. And Bashir said, over my dead body, I cannot release my people. His name was added as number 51. These are the visitors we have in our country today.
Yes.
People accused of committing genocide under UN sanctions. But again, I add my comment, I repeat the comment. If that leaders in East African region and within the IGAD region will have asked William Ruto to host them here, that's a different thing. But if he's doing it alone, on his own volition, then a lot of questions must be asked. Because that is not the way. If all the factions were here, that is different.
All right.
But you cannot form a parallel government in Kenya and then go and impose it on the people of South Sudan at a time when, by the way, the world is facing the biggest humanitarian crisis. Over 1 million people in Sudan are starving. And this is, by the way, even worse than what has been happening in Gaza and what has been happening in Ukraine. It is as terrible as that. But maybe because it's happening in Africa, the world may not be noticing.
All right.
It is our duty to get these things sorted out in a manner that does not leave us with an egg on the face.
An egg on the face. Let me share this with you. We have the front page of the Bold newspaper, and I'm proudly saying that, the Standard. And I want you to react to this. if I would just, but I know that's going to be on the screen shortly, allow me to read it for you. We have here a picture of President William Ruto, and just adjacent to him, the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. We're having the reckless duo. Pretty much up to you to decide if they are a reckless duo, if you're watching. The government seems to be playing down what everyone sees as a diplomatic blunder. Khartoum has said hosting the Rapid Support Force is a hostile act and should be condemned by the international community, rather. However, a statement by Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary justifies the aligning with one side of the conflict as a process to bringing stability in the country and region.
Let me use undiplomatic language.
Okay.
Hogwash.
Is it?
That's what it is. Hogwash. I mean, which Kenyans are you addressing? This is terrible.
Okay.
Please accept this is not the way to do diplomacy. And ask your friends to quietly leave.
All right.
We may even know, by the way, which I don't want to discuss, how you became friends with them. It is that bad. Do you know that it is possible that diamond from Sudan is given the rules under the rules of origin to be seen as Kenyan diamond and taken to the Arab world? It is terrible. And this is, all of it is illegal under international law. You cannot use, this is blood money.
Blood money.
Yes.
I only have...
So we are dealing with a regime
Yes.
which has completely lost it. Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. It's time to save our country and our face and our future and the future of our children. I hope you understand some of these things.
I understand most of what you're saying, and I'm seeing feedback coming in as well. One of the Kenyans asking if you could talk about the NSSF conversation, because you have been speaking on how the government is implementing some of its policies or coming up with them. Look at SHA, look at the agriculture, backbone of our economy. Just a quick remark on what's happening as far as SHA and SHIF as we round up. Yeah.
A disaster. Our health sector is in disaster.
No hope at all, is it?
No, I mean, maybe that's... I don't see them because they have to raise the monies. I don't know what they're so greedy with about this money. So our health sector is... in tatters. Our education sector is a mess. I've just come from villages. I even visited the primary school where I went to school, Sekuru Primary School, and I looked and asked the teachers, what is all this? In the primary school, little kids and others not so big, wearing different uniform, this junior secondary, confusion.
Okay.
Even now, head teachers want to increase fees by 27,000 shillings. So, terrible burden.
Okay.
So education sector is a mess. Your sector is a mess. Everything else, I think, is a mess.
Everything.
And now NSSF itself. I mean, employers, I think, end of this last month, have had to pay even more. All of this money is going to people's pockets.
All right.
So I'm going to call on ODM so-called experts.
Okay.
If they find, in the interest of the guy they call Baba, if they find they got themselves into a mess, they should resign.
All right.
If they resign, they will have opened the little window for Baba. I'm sure nobody would try to understand what I'm saying.
What would be your closing remarks? Just speaking to the head of the state, President William Ruto, do you have any word whatsoever for Ruto in just 30 seconds?
Yeah. Ruto is the president.
Right.
That one we resolved, because you remember before we went for NADCO, Mother Karua could never address him as president. Now, our principal Raila Odinga calls him president. So he's the president.
Okay.
But let him be a statesman. First of all, fix this mess in the Foreign Office. Fix it. Fix if you can, because it's your policy. You're going to have... I hear ODM are given some committees. I don't know what. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing depends on ODM to really fix this country.
Yes.
Don't be obsessed with the possibility of doing only one term.
All right.
Others have done it, and they're happy. President Goodluck Jonathan is a friend of mine. He did one term in Nigeria, okay?
All right.
And the guy who has been thrown out by President Dumo in Botswana did one term. Other people are doing one term. Don't listen to sycophants who say they know how to manufacture presidents beyond 24 years. That time is long gone, my friend.
All right.
Yeah. And since William says my friend, prepare to hand over in a very peaceful, democratic manner.
Thank you very much, Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Senior Counsel and Wiper Party leader, for allowing us to have this conversation tonight. And just looking at the political landscape and Kenya through your lens, I know you're a fan of Mahamri and Bazi when you go to Mombasa. I don't know if you had it when you went to Kilifi.
Bazi, Mahamri, yeah.
You love it.
Oh, yeah, you get the Bazi, coconut.
Yes.
Hey, coconut Bazi. Unaweka kwa Mahamri. People from my village in Sekuru, because they love going to Mombasa. That's how my own father used to work in the port. Yes. And I worked in the port myself after Form 6.
All right.
Oh, I love that Mahamri and Mbaazi. Oh.
We should bring it, but even as we do,
I think I don't know why they leave it only to Mombasa. They should bring it to
Nairobi.
We
should bring it to Nairobi. And even as we close, Nina siri na Yesu.
Yeah.
Yani fanya.
Niwe jasiri.
Jasiri.
Niwe jasiri.
Yeah.
Kwa amani, ama kwa dhiki.
Yes.
Whether peaceful ama kwa dhiki.
Yes.
Yanifanya niwe jasiri.
Thank you very much for your time
Asante.
And for having us. Thank you so much for joining us through this conversation tonight and for speaking with us on our social media platforms. We appreciate your viewership. My name is Anki Dorisambat. We'll have him again for a follow-up. Always keep it KTN, where facts inspire fun. Let's take a short breather. Jesse Rogers will pick it from that after the break in the studios. Good night.
Let's take a short break. Still ahead in business news.